Hello, everyone. Welcome to Measuring the Score podcast, the podcast where we offer our opinions on film scores and the films they're inspired by. I'm Chris.
And I'm Leslie.
Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another bonus episode of Measuring the Score, our last bonus episode of the year.
Oh,
I know, it's kind of sad, but we have very, very special guests today.
yes, they are. They're very special.
Yeah.
Near and dear to us.
Mainly because they were the first podcast we were ever on.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, it was great.
We had a
these
good
guys.
time, too.
Love these guys. And before they get on, let's talk about exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
What are we going to be talking about today, Chris?
Not only do we have these very awesome podcasters, we're going to be talking about The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Your favorite movie?
It is one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
And the thing is, I'm not a big musical person. I like, I get the fascination, I get the love for them, but my go-to movie is not a musical.
Yeah, same with Dad. The only one he likes is the one that has Clint Eastwood in it.
Yeah, okay. Which one is that?
Something with a wagon, I think. I can't remember.
Something with a wagon. All right, let's go ahead and get into
Paint
this.
your wagon? I can't remember.
Maybe. All right, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put your hands together for the Nostalgia Test podcast. Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, what's up? Good to see you all.
Thank you for inviting us to your podcast now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is Dan and Manny from the Nostalgia Test podcast, and they were the first guests, first podcast we were ever on as guests for your the start of your Rocky week that you had going on.
We
The Rocky
you
week.
guys actually had us at our good times.
Yeah.
You didn't have to be at Rocky Balboa episode because
Oh.
we were off the chain on that one. So you guys, everything was so great when we started that whole Rocky week, and then we realized there's a lot of Rockies to watch. And you guys, but our episode was great, and obviously you guys are on our episode because there's a lot of score in that movie, and it is one of the best Rockies of all times.
Yes, I agree.
That's right.
So after we watched all of them, my best changed a couple of times. I think Dan, yours stayed one being the best, right?
Mine stayed
Your
one being the
ranking?
best. Yeah, mine stayed one being the best. And then I think the main changes were like around Rocky 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like where that ended up. But yeah, no, we had you on Rocky 1 episode. It's episode 46 of our podcast. So you can catch, on Spotify, Apple, on our website, thenostalgiatest.com. Great episode. And Manny's right. It was when we were feeling good about Rocky. And then by the end of it, it was
the best one to listen to because we still have high hopes. I mean, you could listen to Rocky 4 too, just because we love Rocky 4 so much. How cheesy and 80s it was, but those two are the best. The other ones you could just see. We went through. It was like we ourselves ran the Rocky steps in Philadelphia. How tired we were.
We
So
had a
it's
good
tough.
guest for Rocky 5. Thank God. Shout out to the Second Chance Films podcast, I think, with Jessica Quaz.
Yeah.
She had a hard Rocky to get through, but she definitely did well. That was a hard one. But yes, glad to be back and glad to talk about this film here.
Yes.
Oh, definitely happy to start. This too is one of my favorites of all time movies to watch. So
Really?
I feel it. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
It is.
yeah.
I was so happy when you guys were like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Oh man, great." Yeah. I've always liked this movie. I was probably Jack Skellington like twice or maybe even 3 times for Halloween. So yeah, this was not a challenge to hang out and watch. A few times, like when you were like, "Oh, you got to listen to the score." I'm like, "Oh, I have to put on the soundtrack and the score and listen to it at work." Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
It was
I
just
do
a little
that.
weird for people walking in. They're like, "What are you listening to?" Like,
Yeah. Well, we had a discussion about that when we did the Halloween music, when we did the This Is Halloween, being like, that's the song that just ends the night. Like, or one of them, it's just like, what is this song? But yeah, I love this movie too. And I have a awesome Jack Skellington hoodie that I got at Disney when I went to Disney, and love wearing it. It's an awesome hoodie. It's like his just face on the front. Like, it's awesome. Yeah, nice. Absolutely.
But I am into musicals. I'll just say that.
Good.
So, yeah.
I like musicals too.
Well, I'm not against them. Don't get me wrong. All right, I am not against musicals. I mean, now I will sit down and watch the musicals. Now, what was the one your sister's really the Newsies? I'll watch the Newsies. The Newsies is fun.
I love the Newsies. It's my favorite.
I mean, the Newsies is fun.
Don't get me wrong.
Oh my God, that's one of me and my twin sister will recite that movie. Like
my sister and I do the same thing.
Yeah. She'll sit there and actually start singing like what's the one song?
Wrong song.
All right, let's not do that because of copyright infringement.
He's like, well, headlines don't sell papes. Newsies sells papes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Have no fear, Brooklyn's here.
That's right.
All right, so we're no longer talking about Nightmare Before Christmas. We're going to go into the Newsies now.
Into musicals.
All right.
All right.
So, guys, seriously, first of all, let me just say thank you so much for coming on here. I mean, yeah, you guys chose The Nightmare Before Christmas because I remember that conversation too because it was after the end of your show and we're sitting there like, oh, we got these bonus episodes we're going to do. And as soon as I said Nightmare Before Christmas, Manny, I think it was you, your eyes were just like,
yeah,
we're doing that one. It's like, okay, we'll have you on for The Nightmare Before Christmas. So, I mean, what a perfect way to close the whole year out, right? Nightmare Before Christmas with some friends. I mean, right?
Yeah.
We just transitioned out of the Halloween feeling, and then now we're transitioning into Christmas, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, because like November now is Christmas time, apparently.
Yeah.
So,
there is no Thanksgiving. It goes
right from Halloween to Christmas. There's no
Thanksgiving
anymore.
It was like
Thanksgiving was forgotten.
Yeah, there is no Thanksgiving. Turkey. What do we need turkey for? There's turkey for Christmas. Come on.
Yeah. So the question before we get into it, I want to ask you guys: is this a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie or both?
Well, we think it's a Christmas movie.
Hence
why we're putting it in Christmas time.
Yeah. I would say it's fine to watch both times because
so.
I've watched it.
I can agree with that.
Yeah,
it's one of those films you can watch for either season because I mean it's Halloween and it's Christmas and I mean
Oh, and I've watched it even before we were doing this for the podcast. You didn't have to tell me to watch it twice. I've watched it twice every year. So.
I've already
watched it. Even watch it in the summertime.
This is one of those movies that I'll watch like during Christmas or during Halloween, and then Christmas it's like this, and then it'll be like National Lampoon's Christmas.
Yes.
These are that's coming on like more than 4 times.
And then for like Halloween, we always watch. We might watch this sometimes, but it's always going to be Hocus Pocus and some random horror movie. just for Halloween,
Yeah, of course. Right, so let's get into this. I'm excited to like.
Oh, I can tell he's excited. Look at him; he's just like ready to go. All right, so the first thing we're going to be talking about is, like always on our show, we talk about the score first. Now, the score was by Danny Elfman. If you don't know who Danny Elfman is, we did an entire showcase of him back in one of our earlier episodes. Go check that out and listen to it. I think it was episode 10, I believe. As our researcher does her research and checks.
Yes, you were right. It was episode 10. I am amazed.
Yay! I am smart.
I am amazed. I know numbers.
Yay! All right, so Danny Elfman, of course, is, it's like the Steven Spielberg, John Williams collaboration. It's Tim Burton and Danny Elfman. 9 out of 10 times, if you got a Tim Burton movie, you're going to have a Danny Elfman score. There's only like a few instances. And this film is actually one of the times where Danny Elfman didn't work with Tim Burton. It was for Ed Wood because Danny Elfman and Tim Burton had creative differences on the set of this film that led to, Howard Shore coming on board for Ed Wood later on.
So Danny Elfman, when he was working on this, he was also working on Batman Begins.
Batman Returns.
Or Returns, excuse me.
Batman Begins is Christian Bale.
Yeah, I just get. I'm so sorry, my Batman fans. I'm so sorry.
You've just ruined a lot of things for people.
I've had like very little sleep. Very little sleep. I knew that was wrong. Okay, anyway. He was working on Batman, and he's never worked on a musical before, so he didn't know where to begin. He's like, I don't know what to do. Tim Burton's like, well, I know I want to make this movie that's kind of the reverse of The Grinch That Stole Christmas, but I don't know what it's going to be. So, they were kind of...
It was all based on a poem
yeah,
that Tim Burton did.
They were kind of, So Danny Elfman started to form the score when he started seeing the illustrations for the movie. He was looking at the illustrations and he was reading some lines of the poem, and then he started getting ideas of how he thought that the score should sound and the musical, and then he started writing it down. And started working on it from there. But this is the first time Danny Elfman's ever done a musical, which is to me peculiar because he sang in a rock band.
Oingo Boingo.
Yes, Oingo Boingo. And yes. So you would think that it wouldn't be too difficult for him since he wrote music for,
Yeah, because we got to give credit where credit's due. We watched the Netflix documentary, The Movies That Made Us, and they had a Nightmare Before Christmas episode, and in there, that's when Danny Elfman was like, I've never done a musical before, and I'm like you, it was kind of shocking to me, because I'm going... You come from Oingo Boingo, and you did, The Forbidden Zone with his brother Richard Elfman. It had a lot of musical elements in there, and then for him to say, I've never done a musical, it's like, you're Danny Elfman. I mean, come on. Now, I got you guys to listen to the Spotify version of Nightmare Before Christmas, and it has the one, the only, Patrick Stewart as the narrator.
Yeah. That was jarring. That was amazing. I was like, oh, whoa. I was like, this is amazing. Patrick Stewart is doing the intro. I was just like, love it right away. Like I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Now,
that was great.
Is he a narrator for any other of Tim Burton's movies?
I don't know.
No, but he did narrate. I remember him being a narrator for something.
Now, because I was like, this almost has a Charlie Chaplin like when Tim Burton did that one. I was like, it sounded like that narration too. So I was like, oh, was he the narrator there too? This movie brought back so many different things in it. So it was great. I love that you had us listen to that. So it was great.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, when the track starts up, you start hearing, the familiar Danny Elfman style going in there.
Which wasn't familiar at the time because he only did a few movies before here, and he didn't have that sound. So critics didn't like this score at all at first because they're like, this is not like Batman, and this is not like Beetlejuice. It was different. It was different.
So... Funny you say that because I was talking to Dan today. I go, I get a Beetlejuice vibe through this whole thing.
Yep,
yeah.
That's what I thought.
I was
that's
like,
what I was. Yeah,
I feel like I'm in the train set of Beetlejuice, like all the quick things that are happening, like the flute, the violins and stuff. Like I'm like, this is Beetlejuice. I was like, I got Beetlejuice. I got Home Alone. I even got some Batman. I was like, going all over the place in my head when I was like closing my eyes and listening just to everything that was going on. So I was like, this guy must, that's when I started like going to the rabbit hole of Danny. Cause I was like, he must have done these movies. Cause like all of it sounds so familiar to me. And it's funny that you said that they didn't like it and then it didn't sound like that.
Right.
But I still hear it a little bit.
And you can see it also in the movie, which we can get into. But, I've seen this movie so many times, and I sat down with Chris the other day to watch it, and I'm like, why didn't I catch this before? It looked like there were sandworms to me. And I'm like, that's a sandworm. What is this?
Totally was.
Totally. All the snakes are sandworms. And like, I was waiting. Dan and I were like, was there like a Easter egg of Beetlejuice somewhere?
Exactly. I asked Chris the same thing.
Well, we kept looking for it. We'll talk about it when we get to the film part.
Sorry. Yeah.
No. So the soundtrack keeps going. You get the wonderful Patrick Stewart narration, which surprisingly was not in the film when we watched it on Disney Plus. And it, to me, from what I read in the trivia, Patrick Stewart was supposed to be the original narrator. I think that's what they recorded, and that's what they put onto the soundtrack. And then I couldn't find a reason why they did not use Patrick Stewart. You cut out Jean-Luc Picard. I mean,
I love Patrick Stewart.
Exactly. Everybody loves Patrick Stewart. Charles
Wonderful.
Xavier, Jean-Luc Picard. I mean, how do you do that?
Excalibur.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you cut out the man from Excalibur right there. That's just wrong. So I'm glad they put it onto the soundtrack, and then you get to everybody's favorite track. Well, one of everybody's favorite track. My personal favorite track.
Just because it's your favorite track doesn't mean
no. There are a lot of people that like this track. the track I'm talking about is "This Is Halloween." Of course, it's the opening song of the movie. It's what sets everything off, and I want to hear the original recording of Danny Elfman doing all the different voices for this song, because that would just been amazing.
Maybe they'll release it one day.
That would be great. Him sitting there on the piano doing all the different voices for everybody. It was just, and the thing is that I don't want to jump too far ahead, but he got all this just from looking at the storyboards.
Yeah, storyboards.
And reading the poem. Mm-hmm. The script wasn't written at this point when he was coming up with the songs. They were writing the script more based off of his songs, and then there weren't anything else.
Wow.
That is insane.
That's awesome.
I mean, I see that though. I mean, the sound that he creates, like as I was listening to it, created the world. Like it was just like you could hear kind of everything happening around it, kind of being built around it. Mm-hmm. So I felt like he really captured the sense of what the film should be looking like. And what's funny though, it's funny to think that this is his first musical. I'm blown away by hearing that, because like this sounds like someone who has been doing this forever. Mm-hmm. That like this is like, because it was so every track in the score was like on point. It just everything created such a great walkthrough, and it just felt like seamless as listening to the whole thing. It
was great. It really was, and he was living with one of the screenwriters at the time.
They were dating, weren't they?
Yeah, they were dating in real life. And the thing was, he said that he kind of felt bad for her because he was constantly going up. What do you think about this? Well, what did you think about this right here? Well, what about this? I'm pretty sure that drove her nuts a little bit.
Sure.
So,
but then they came out with like one of the most classic movies of all time.
Right.
Which is, what Elfman wanted. He wanted to achieve he called a musical timelessness. And I think he did. And what I find wonderful, fascinating about the score is that he had married these two ideas in music. So he's got this, you got this Halloween. So This Is Halloween. It's kind of got like this Halloween feeling to it, how he, it was written. And then later in the score, you start hearing these Christmas elements with the bells and, that sort of thing. And even though they're singing about Halloween, the music sounds like Christmas. And but it's married together in such a way that it works. And I liked that about the score.
That's where I got the influence of kind of like a Home Alone-ish vibe. Like if you watch Home Alone and like where the wind is going in the front and you hear all the flutes and the violins. And I was like, oh, it's tying in Christmas movie songs. And like I thought that was great. And I love the part when Jack is scary and how like the bass comes in. Yep. Like all of that, like the anger when Jack is being his
pumpkin kid.
Angry self or his like pumpkin, like jack-o'-lantern, like I'm supposed to be scary self, and how that changes throughout his like way of like when he's happy and he's sad or he's angry, and he just has to revert to being like Mr. Scary Guy. So I thought it was fantastic setup.
Yeah, he was able to emote those emotions, and it was very fluidly done, where it didn't sound disconnected at all, and it was lovely. It really was.
Well, Danny Elfman said that he felt most like Jack Skellington. He said he said even though he had never done a musical before, it was the easiest thing he ever done because he was connected to Jack. And when he's singing, the Jack song where Jack's in the graveyard and he's singing how he feels discontent and he doesn't want to be the Pumpkin King anymore. That was Danny Elfman because he didn't want to do Oingo Boingo anymore. He wanted to get out of the band. So that's what when you hear that song, that's just Danny Elfman saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do film music. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in the band. I don't want to be the guy known for being in Oingo Boingo. And you feel bad for him. I mean, when you hear that song and you see it on screen and you hear it, everything else, you really feel bad for him because this is what this guy felt at that time. And he put every bit of himself into that performance. And I thought it was fantastic.
I love that part. I love that song's really great. I mean, the Jack's Lament or something. The way he just puts that out there, and it's such a great song. It's such a great song. And the thing is, like, everything that he's done, when you think of like Danny Elfman doing like Batman Returns and things like that, like the kind of like the coldness of that and the kind of frigidness of this sound and that sound, it almost feels like the worlds are interconnected in that way where, like, you have a character like Jack Skellington that doesn't want to be the Pumpkin King, the Pumpkin King anymore. And then in Batman Returns, you have this character, the Penguin, who is just like tortured, but trying to be like accepted in this other world. And like there's such a connection between that, like even the sounds kind of like of both scores or both worlds kind of really interconnect together.
Yeah, totally.
I completely agree with it.
I do too.
mean, and it was just go ahead.
I think that's what made it successful. It's because he was able to emote himself in his artistry, really, and that's what artists do. A piece of them normally goes into their art, and you could tell a piece of Danny Elfman went into this score, a very personal piece too, of himself. Now, the score itself did not have a main motif. So, typically the past movies that Chris and I have talked about, you have a main motif. Even when we were the nostalgia test and we're talking about Rocky had a main motif. You could hear it throughout all of the movies. This score here did not have a recurring theme. It had a variety of styles. If you listen to the Oogie Boogie, it's very jazzy. It's got a jazzy feel to it. And then you've got those that have the Christmas feel to it, and then those that have the, or like Sally's song. It's really minimalistic and kind of somber sounding. He's all over the place as far as sound is concerned in this score.
To me, the two main songs that do have a recurring is This Is Halloween and What's This? Those are the two main songs that do come back. But he incorporates so many different styles from each song throughout the rest of the score. Like there's parts where there's like an action cue and you hear parts of What's This playing, and then, it'll switch to parts of This Is Halloween playing. Or, when with Sally's song, there's like just so many different moving parts. So yeah, there is no main theme for the entire film. It's just, The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is just this. And there are a lot of musicals that have a main theme. This one doesn't, in our opinions. I mean,
yeah, I agree, because I remember listening to one of you guys' episodes about it was Jaws, and how like Jaws' theme, like you knew when Jaws was coming, like that, and like you didn't. Yeah, there wasn't a particular. Like, it wasn't like any time you saw Jack, it was that Jack theme. It wasn't that. It was like what was going on in that scene and stuff. And I'm glad you brought up Oogie Boogie, because that is one of my favorites. Just because of how different, like, that came out of nowhere. It was like I love that they like have like the whole gambling thing going on and like the jazzy feel. It was just like fun. Like even though it's like about the Oogie Boogie Man, but there was just like some like good times with it. Like I had a really good time listening to it.
Ken Page has the most wonderful voice for Oogie Boogie. I mean, I had no idea who Ken Page was. Still don't really know too much about him, but he has done the voice of Oogie Boogie for every iteration that there's been, like every video game, every kind of different kind of cartoon, anything that had Oogie Boogie. it was always Ken Page. And I just recently they had a concert. It was Danny Elfman live on stage, doing Nightmare Before Christmas, and he had Billie Eilish come on and play Sally, which I heard she did a fantastic job. But sure enough, Ken Page shows up on stage, and he's like, he starts saying something, and he starts singing the Oogie Boogie song, and everybody, they gave him like a standing ovation and everything else.
Oh,
it reminded me of Dr. John. You know Dr. John?
Yes.
Yes. Oogie Boogie.
Yeah.
I think that you probably could put any Dr. John song in there with Oogie Boogie, and it would work. I just felt like that when I saw that.
I thought he sounded almost like what's that guy from who played Feed Me, Seymour, Feed Me?
Oh,
almost
yeah,
kind of like,
yeah.
Like he would have been a perfect. He would have been a perfect cast for the
Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop of Horrors song.
Yes.
So Ken Page has done the voice of a lot of different people. I mean, he was in All Dogs Go to Heaven. He was like King Gator in that one.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can picture that.
Yeah, he was in that. He was in they said Little Mermaid, like Sebastian and Little Mermaid.
What?
He was Sebastian?
That's like that says 2019, so I think it's a concert. So he did the concert version.
Okay.
But still, like I see, like I remember All Dogs Go to Heaven, and then in 1998 for, I guess, Cats, when they were doing something with Cats, maybe it was a movie or the film or the version that they filmed from Broadway. He was Old Deuteronomy.
Oh, okay.
So
This guy has been, he's like a real, like, probably real Broadway actor, because like when he sang, when that song came out, I was like, it reminded me of being at like a Broadway musical, that this guy's gonna stand at the front of the stage and just belt that song out. And that was, he was literally just like, this is my time. I don't care what's going on around me. This movie's happening, but I'm gonna make this like mine. And that's how like I hear that music in the score. I'm like, this is a totally different world. This is not like Nightmare Before Christmas, but it is.
It had a completely different style. Even the visuals kind of changed a little bit, because the Halloween Town was like very dark, devoid of color, very drab looking, and then you get Oogie Boogie's layer, and there's like green everywhere. There's lights just shining all over the place.
I love the black light effect that they did. To me, that was just amazing. I just loved it.
Yeah, and then one of my other favorite songs is the Kidnap the Sandy Claus. I love that song.
Chris, me and you are on the same vibe here, because I thought that was great too. I was like, I love the little, like the beginning of that was really cool, and it was just like, very like spy like.
Yeah.
And then them just talking about what they were going to do and stuff.
It's like little banter within the song of what they're going to do. I love that. And Danny Elfman was the voice of Beryl, because it was the three kids. It was Lock, Stock, and Barrel. Danny Elfman did the singing voice of Jack, and he did the singing voice and also just the voice of Beryl. Now, Danny Elfman was supposed to voice Jack, as an acting as Jack, and he was kind of nervous about it. He went to Tim Burton's like, "Oh no, don't worry, you got the part." Then, unfortunately, he provided the voice, and the actual director of the film, Henry Selick, said it was kind of wooden. It just didn't. It didn't fit the role. So, unfortunately, they had to, tell him, "Hey, look, sorry, this isn't going to work." I think this may be one of the things Danny Elfman was a little upset that Tim Burton didn't tell him himself. He got somebody else to tell him.
Wow.
And Danny said that he was a little crushed by that, and I can understand why. I mean, if my friend hired me and said, "Hey, look, you're gonna be doing this," and it's like, "Sorry, you're gonna be cut," but he isn't the one that tells me. It's just like, "Oh, okay." But they got Chris Sarandon to voice Jack Skellington. For the longest time, I could not tell the difference.
That's why they got him.
I still can't.
Yeah, that's why they hired him.
I still can't tell the difference.
Because he sounded a lot like Danny Elfman. That's why he got
just
the role.
just like him. It was so weird. When I looked that up, I was like, "Oh, there's two different people that voiced this." I'm like, that's so odd. It sounded like the same exact person. But that is weird that like Tim Burton. Well, maybe it's not, because Tim Burton is that sounds like Tim Burton. Like that sounds like something Tim Burton would do. Like he's like locked up, and so he locks himself up in some tower somewhere. It's like I don't want to do that. You go do that.
Well, he's an introvert possibly, and he might have like lost that energy to be like, I don't want to confront this. Like I told this guy just did all this recording, and we gotta like say no. Like that's tough.
He got angry there, and I saw it in trivia, and we watched it on the Movies That Made Us. The concept was to make Oogie Boogie the same as Dr.
No. It was supposed to be revealed at the very end of the movie that Dr. Finkelstein, the evil scientist, Finkelstein, was supposed to be Oogie Boogie.
And he didn't like
it.
Tim Burton got so mad that he actually kicked a hole in the wall. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he got so mad he kicked
he
got so mad he kicked a hole in the wall at the studio, and then afterwards they said it was like deafening quiet and the whole thing, and then they signed it. They put like a drew circle around it and signed it. It said Tim Burton was here.
Oh my god! Yeah, the evil scientist was amazing. He was voiced by William Hickey, who was in who's the uncle with the toupee in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, who sets the tree on fire. He's like, what?
What?
One of the greatest scenes ever.
Yeah.
So they wanted to say that he was the Oogie Boogie man at the end,
which makes no sense.
No, it made no sense. And even going back and watching it, when we were watching it and we knew what it was supposed to be, I was trying to find like subtle things. If there was any way leading up to that Finkelstein was Oogie Boogie, I couldn't find it the entire time. It would have made no sense if you just had that. It would have been like, hey, I'm really Oogie Boogie. No.
Yeah.
I always thought it was creepier that it was a bunch of bugs.
Yeah. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Because like think about like being a kid and like just like thinking about like your worst nightmares of what like a Oogie Boogie man could be or whatever. And like,
those bugs.
It's like, they're just a bunch of bugs that made a person. That's gross too. And like I thought it was, or not a person, a sack of whatever it was.
A burlap sack.
Yeah, it was a burlap sack.
Yeah.
It freaked me out that like, because I forget all the time that those three creepy kids like have this little hole, and then like they throw things down and like they have him down there. I'm like, this is like if the kids from It actually just like created it and then like keeping him alive and feeding him to children.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? Like, so it's like they had this, he's down in this hole. I'm like, oh, that's right. They're like keeping him alive. It was so weird. It was so weird. So weird.
And the thing that gets me with the score, when it, how it continuously changes in the tone and the shift and the emotion and everything else. And then on the soundtrack, when we just played it, I didn't listen to the closing part in the car. I got to the end part and I was like, all right, I'm done. No. I should have listened to it because we played it just a few minutes ago before you guys came on.
I told Chris, I said, hey, Chris, you need to listen to the closing score cue if you hadn't yet. And he was like, okay. And he started listening to it and he goes, what?
So it's Patrick Stewart telling basically if there was ever a sequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas and saying that he went back and, saw his old friend Jack, and Jack had
years later,
and Jack had a bunch of little skeleton kids running around.
Yeah.
And he asked him, would you ever do this again? Knowing what you know now, would you go back and do this? And Jack leans in, smiles. He's with a big Pumpkin King smile and says, wouldn't you? I thought that was great. And you had this, very soft Danny Elfman music playing in the background. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. That is just wonderful.
I was waiting to see it.
Right.
When I watched the movie, I'm like, where's that part? Like, how come that would have been cool? Like,
that would have been great. That would have been great. Yeah. I think they should have ended it like that. Now the score was fantastic. That's all we've been talking about, how great the score is. I mean, it really is. Because I was a kid when I watched this film, and like I just said, I'm not a big musical person. It was even more so back then. I really did not like musicals. And when it came to the singing parts, watching a Disney movie, I'm just like, more singing, great. Okay, let's fast forward this. Oh, the song's over. I think like the only one at that time was Aladdin. I liked Aladdin at that point.
I love Aladdin.
Wait, so what'd you see? Like 15 minutes of a Disney film?
Pretty
like,
much.
It's just like, and done.
Yeah, that's pretty much. It's like, oh, that's the story. Okay, great. Great. Okay, cool.
You're
done.
fast forwarding through Hakuna Matata. Come on.
No.
Ever after.
Yeah, I mean, no, I would sit there and listen to the songs, but it was like when they would start singing about everything, and it's like, oh, I just stubbed my toe. Oh, I stubbed my toe. It's like, come on, guys, this is. Come on, you don't have to have a song about everything.
That's the hard
that
part.
That musical is a little tough one. Those kind of musicals are like, come on.
Yeah, it's a little bit, and that's what I was a little afraid of with this film. But it was not me who wanted to go see it. It was my brother. All because of the trailer where the little kid is like, the parents come walking in and he's like, so what did Santa bring you? And he pulls out the head out of the box.
Yes.
My brother was like, we've got to go see that. And I'm like, okay, all right, And,
that's awesome.
And it was the one time where we sat there and it was like every song afterwards, we were humming it. When we come out of the theaters, we were humming every song.
See, Danny Elfman did what he set out to do, to make a timeless score. And I mean, even to this day, sometimes those songs will pop in my head and I start burst out singing, This is Halloween or, Sally's Lament.
What's this?
What's this?
Did this whole time that we've been talking, What's This is playing in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
What's this?
It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Because
so
it is. Like when you said like the idea of like it being like a reverse engineered, like the Grinch, like, because like that scene, and I know we're not talking about the movie yet, but I just remember like that scene where like he's looking down on Christmas Town. That's literally like the scene from
Whoville.
the Whoville, him looking down on Whoville, and it was just like I was like, oh my god, it's like literally that whole thing with Beetlejuice sandworms. I mean,
that's right. Sandworm was under the Christmas tree. Sandworm.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. All right, so we keep talking about the film. Let's go ahead and start talking about the movie now. What was your guy? What was y'all's like? Reaction the first time you ever saw the movie?
Oh, I mean, I loved this movie the first time I saw it. I thought it was one of the coolest things because I love that kind of stop motion, kind of feel, and that was it was just so visually captivating. Every landscape, and now even watching it back, Jack's Lament, that song when he sings that and he walks onto that hill and then the hill unwraps like that and he walks down. That is one of my favorite visuals of like any movie, like one of the top visuals from any film, because it's just so beautifully put together. I don't know, and there's something about him as a character that I just love as like visually as a character. It's just
the aesthetic is lovely. I mean, it's all the aesthetic is just with colors. You've got the muted colors of, Halloween Town. And then when you get into the Christmas town, you've got all those bright colors that you would see at Christmas time. And it made you just it reminded me almost of the Christmas markets when I lived in Germany with all the lights and, the trees. And
I miss those. Those are good times. Yeah, I love that.
Wonderful stuff.
I actually, same thing with Dan. I love stop motion. When I was a child, the first movie I ever shot, I went to school for film, but the first movie I ever shot was a stop motion of my bed making itself. So when this movie came out, I was like, oh, we're going to see this. I couldn't believe that. Like, I was blown away. And I remember like knowing how many heads, I forget now, but how many heads Jack had.
Oh yeah.
Like,
just to make him like
yeah.
sing and stuff. And like, I watched like documentaries on how this movie was made. Even back, like, imagine the technology now.
Yeah. If
they did that movie now, how faster things would be. But like, I just love, anytime I see stop motion, I'm like, I'm watching it. And like, just the setting, everything was just done so well. And Dan, when you talking about that scene, that moon, it's like anything with that moon, like right away, it's what movie you're talking about. Like anytime you see
especially
it,
when you see that hill, because it's always curled up. It's like the iconic shot. You always see Jack up on that hill and the hill's curled up. And every time I see that, I see it on shirts, backpacks, whatever. First thing that pops in my head is I'm waiting for Jack to start walking down and it starts unraveling. I thought that was the coolest thing ever when I saw that.
A telltale sign of a good artist is when you look at that piece, you know who that artist is immediately just by looking at it. And Tim Burton has that classic style. You could look at any scene, and if it was even in drawing form, which he used to be a Disney animator.
Yeah, which blew my mind when I found that out.
any of his pieces like that and immediately say that's Tim Burton, because he has got a characteristic style about him, especially with his animation. And it's just, to me, wonderful. And that tells you that he is a good artist, because it doesn't mimic anybody else. It doesn't look like anybody else. You immediately know that that's Tim Burton.
Now, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, when I lived in when I was living in New York in Astoria, Manny knows this place. They have the Museum of the Moving Image there, and they did a whole Tim Burton retrospective, and it blew my mind. Like all the old illustrations he did as a young animator for Disney, and some of the stuff he was working on, and you could see kind of the aesthetic just kind of growing and kind of being there. And she's like, he already knew kind of what he was and who he was as an artist, and you could see it. And I mean, that was one of the greatest exhibits, because it was just everything Tim Burton. They had it all right there, and it was quite amazing to see. And that's why I mean, I love this film. And even when it comes to his live action films, they kind of have the same aesthetic from that stuff.
Tim Burton, didn't he grow up in like Levittown? So like,
did he?
I think he grew up in a Levitt town, and that's why like Edward Scissorhands, the way the town was set up, it was set up about like growing up in suburbia, in that kind of like makeshift town, and like how people were in that town because of like being so close and everything looking the same, and all the houses. The only thing that separated the houses were their colors. So like everything else was like pretty much the same. So it's pretty interesting if you go even deeper in his life of like why certain movies were made the way they were. So
he was born in Burbank, but like in California. But it literally, Manny, it's just another suburb. Just like it was. Just
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and
then it was a rumor.
Rumor.
Just
debunked.
like,
it's a wives' tale.
But if you watch the movie, you see his use of stripes. There's a lot of you see stripes all over the place. You got the sandworm, and if you think about Beetlejuice, what was in Beetlejuice? Stripes.
Right.
That use of stripes, the characteristic. I would call them curly cues. He uses those shapes, things like that. And
the sunken eyes too.
That translates from both his cartoon or his stop motion film that he made to his live action. Even some of the aesthetics from Edward Scissorhands, look at some of that. Yeah. It equate. I mean, you can see the similarities between all of them.
This is why I think and I watched this recently, like Corpse Bride. I didn't enjoy it. It just didn't. I mean, maybe it just didn't do what I felt like Nightmare Before Christmas did. So and it just I didn't have the same feelings. I felt it was darker than Nightmare Before Christmas. I was like, I can't see certain things. I feel like I'm in the dark, and the music didn't have for me the same things that Nightmare Before Christmas had. And it was just like, it just didn't have the same energy that like Nightmare Before Christmas did, which I feel like is still like a lamenting type of film of something, but there was like up. Where like in Corpse Bride, I always felt like I was just like, I don't know, like floating slowly through it, trying to get to the end.
Well, I don't know any trivia about Corpse Bride, but like what we were talking about with Danny, like he was writing what he knew. He was writing what he went through. So like maybe that came out, and why it's such a great movie is that like he was so into what he was writing about, and it was about him. As opposed to I don't know anything about how Corpse Bride was written or whatever. So maybe you just didn't feel that energy. I haven't watched Corpse Bride in a while.
Yeah, same
either.
Here.
But
and when I watched it, I was like, Dan, I was like trudging through it. I was just like, okay, I get it. All right, all right, whatever. Let's just hurry up.
Yeah.
I don't remember any songs from the Corpse Bride.
But I think that, if you look back at Danny's score, that even though he has all of these changes and pieces, you got the jazzy piece and serious piece, but with those changes, it helps the movie move. It actually provides a nice pacing for the movie. You can watch a going and if it's got a terrible score that has terrible pacing, it's going to slow down the movie even more, and then the movie is going to be just you're going to have to suffer through it, 5 minutes will pass by, and you're just like, oh, it's been 30 minutes.
I think it was because Danny wrote a lot of the songs, wrote all of the songs beforehand. So he basically painted part of the canvas for the guys. He's like, okay, here's part of it. Just fill in, just do your thing on the rest of the painting and make it wonderful. And
it's like The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. The score was the first thing that was written, and the movie was filmed around the score. So that's made basically it effective what happened here. Because the movie.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you should listen to our Good and Bad and the Ugly episode. But what they did was they wrote the score first, and he would get out there and start filming the movie, and he would play the score for them while filming to give them an idea of what's going on. Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened here with this. And I remember when the film came out, because it was always, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I was like, oh, wow, Tim Burton directed an animated movie. No, it wasn't Tim Burton that directed it. It was Henry Selick, one of Tim Burton's early animating friends. And, and that always threw me off, because I would always like, oh, yeah, it's Tim Burton. No, it's not Tim Burton. And Rick Heinrich, Tim Burton's, production designer from Batman Returns, I think Batman and Beetlejuice as well, knew the Tim Burton style, and he was the one that was really communicating with the guys there that were doing the stop motion about what has the Tim Burton look and what doesn't have the Tim Burton look. And then Tim Burton would just kind of come in on a lot of things and give his final take. Now, Tim Burton come up with a story and a lot of the characters and everything else, but it was originally Michael McDowell. I think that's his name. Yeah, Michael McDowell. He was a screenwriter for Beetlejuice, was supposed to write the script and everything else, but he was paid, and he was taking a long time, and that's when they were starting the stop motion, and they didn't really have much. Now, again, like I said, this is coming from the Movies That Made Us. They said that eventually what they found out was he used a lot of his money for drugs and basically said, I'm done. And that is when they brought in Caroline Thompson, who was dating Danny Elfman at the time, because Danny was the one who was like, hey, look, she's really good. Why don't we get her? Because, she did Edward Scissorhands. Why don't we just, ask Caroline to do it? Because
she's been listening to me play this all week long.
Exactly. I mean, and it was like she knew the characters. She knew, and she felt really close to Sally. And Sally's part from Michael McDowell's original screenplay was, very limited.
It's a very flat character. She's the one that actually gave Sally depth and developed the character even further. If it wasn't for her, then Sally would not have had a voice at all. She would have been just one of those flat, two-dimensional background characters.
I mean, Sally played huge parts in this. I thought she was great in that. I loved her parts.
Now, speaking of Sally's voice, it blew me away when I found out the voice of Sally is Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
The mom from Home Alone.
From Home Alone.
And it wasn't like she just did the voice and that was it. No, she did the voice and the singing parts, and I'm going, what?
Well, I mean, Catherine O'Hara in A Mighty Wind, she sang in A Mighty Wind, and she has an amazing singing voice. Everyone in that Christopher Guest movie had to sing and play those instruments. So, when I saw it was her, I was surprised because I never knew it was her. And then I was like, man, but then as she's singing, I'm like, it makes sense. Like she could really sing really well, and she's just a great actress. I love Catherine O'Hara, and the fact that she, I don't know, she's so great that it was really great to kind of find that out. That was like a little thing that I didn't know before.
Now she was in Beetlejuice, and then her Beetlejuice co-star, the mayor, Glenn Shaddix. I mean, it was Otho in Beetlejuice. It was also the mayor in the Nightmare. I thought that was great. I loved him as the mayor.
I was waiting to see some more, Easter eggs of Beetlejuice, as we were talking about before, because, I'm rewatching this, and I didn't notice, for example, Zero's nose was a little pumpkin. I always thought that it glowed, but when you really look at it, it's a little jack-o'-lantern, and I noticed that.
Okay.
So next time you watch it, look at his nose. It's a little jack-o'-lantern.
Oh. Now that you're saying it, I could see that it was a little bit more orange. I get it now.
So now when you see it, you'll see the little face on it. And I'm like, is that a jack-o'-lantern? And Chris is like, yeah. And then
I was like, you never noticed that? And she's like, yeah. And I was like,
wow.
Oh, my bad.
And then I'm like, is that a sandworm? You know, because the first scene where you see a little worm come out, it looked just like a sandworm. I was expecting to see Beetlejuice hidden somewhere. You know,
there might be like a gravestone or something with his name on it.
Probably.
You know, who knows?
Yeah.
He's not like Steven Spielberg, where they have to like, you know, Steven Spielberg. Me and Dan were joking around that Steven Spielberg loves his Easter eggs. It's like basically just talking about himself the whole time. So like, you know, Tim Burton maybe isn't so much into that. So, but
it's not as arrogant.
It would be cool. Yeah.
Well, like
although
you said,
he didn't really do this movie, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. There was one time I was watching a spoof on this movie, and I didn't realize that Tim didn't direct it because I was just assumed.
Right.
And
well, it's got his name at the top right there.
Yeah. So. And my mind was like,
What?
What do you mean? It looks so much like a Tim Burton movie. What do you mean? Like the whole feeling and stuff. But now that you brought up, like, even like the eyes in the live action movies that he does are all like blacked out in a lot of the movies and stuff. Like Batman Returns, like the rich guy who's
Christopher Walken.
Like he had some deep eyes.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice,
Sleepy Hollow,
Alice in Wonderland, Sleepy Hollow. The list goes on. Yeah.
Oh, what was the last one you did? The Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Yeah, one of the girls in that, she had the sunken eyes too, and that's one of his things.
Did he do that one?
Yeah, that was him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It didn't have a Danny Elfman score.
It made me sad.
Danny Elfman also did Dick Tracy. Wow, his list goes on.
He did Dick Tracy because he did Batman, and then everybody loved that sound, and that's what they wanted for their movie. So he did Dick Tracy, then he did Darkman, and then he formed a friendship with Sam Raimi off of Darkman, and then it was like every time he had a Sam Raimi movie, he had either Joe LaDuca, who did Evil Dead, or Danny Elfman.
Wow.
I'm like a walking IMDb. I can't help it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he remembers
Men in Black. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And he did the most recent Men in Black movie, but he had a different he had another composer working with him. It was Chris Bacon, I think the guy's name was. And I remember that guy's name because he did a something else one time, and he had a middle initial. It was P, so it's Chris P. Bacon, Crispy Bacon. I thought that was the funniest.
Oh my god,
that was the funniest thing ever. I was like, I cannot believe this guy got this big job and he puts on there Crispy Bacon.
Like Rip Torn, that's his name, Rip Torn. Really.
Yeah, Rip Torn.
Rip Torn.
Wow,
Crispy Bacon. I loved that one. So when I found out, go ahead.
I'm just the last thing. Like Men in Black. I'm remembering the scene at the end with the marbles when the alien's playing with the Earth and it's like a bunch of marbles, and just the score. Now that I know it's Danny, I'm like,
you picture
it kind of sounds, he's got a sound. He has like a theme in a way of his sound. Wow.
We went back to, when we talking about like how there was like, there's no real motif, like there's like no thing that kind of go, that's this person's sound, that's this person's sound. But like, there's like a encompassing like environment that he creates with like the sonic ability of the whole thing. Because like, how like when you watch Star Wars, when certain things are happening, Luke is staring out at the three moons or whatever it's going on, and there's that Luke sound, then there's Darth Vader sound, then there's the rebellion sound, and it's so hammered in there that after it just becomes like a kind of predictable, where like here it's just like it's stitched together because it's so well developed as music, because like it's like an album, because he's in a band, he was in a band, he knows how to like kind of like synchronize an album together that doesn't necessarily have like those things where it's just like that's this song. It just kind of works really well. And I just felt like if you didn't point that out, that there was no like motif, I would have been like, of course there is. Of course there is. Like it just totally is, but there's not. But he just knows how to like put together the score like that.
Yeah, and the ideas are connected, so well that it just flows. And Halloween has always got this dark feeling and dark sound because Halloween is about the things that scare you the most. But then you've got Christmas, which is joyous, and it's about giving. And yet he's married those two ideas in music. And that's so wonderful to do when you put your idea that you are feeling and you put it in the music. I've talked about James Horner before and how much I love James Horner because he has a way to make you feel through the music. And if you listen to his music when you're sad, you will just boohoo all over the place because he has a way of emoting feeling through music. And I think that Danny Elfman hit it on the head with this, emoting, what's going on in Jack's life. The concepts between Halloween and Christmas, and even Sally, because Sally has this, she wants to get away. She don't want to be in prison. That's why her and Jack are a lot alike. And he was able to take all of that feeling and emote it in the music, and you can understand it through just listening to the music. And it's wonderful without a motif, it's got that hierarchy of a feel there. I think it's just, he's masterful to me.
Yeah.
I was reading through a lot of the trivia right before this, and I don't know why I didn't catch this. And he was like one of my favorite characters too. The band that was always in the
I always like the saxophone player.
Yeah,
that's
I always like
yeah.
So in the guitar, you've got like a little guy inside the guitar that's modeled after Danny Elfman. I did not even pay attention to it.
Oh my god, that's
I
so
was
funny.
like, and when I read it in the trivia, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see
like
that
the little
now.
Saxophone player. He calls him Bone Daddy.
Yeah.
There's so many weird people in this movie. Like Greg Proops is like the sound, the voice of the saxophone,
right?
Who's like on, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes,
He's like
he's a funny guy.
Unbelievable comedian. And when I saw it, I was like, that's so random. So
exactly.
Random. Like you're gonna play this saxophone guy. That's you'll have some lines. And that's it.
The band was great.
The
band.
I liked when they started
on the
playing,
street corner the whole time.
I liked when they started playing Jingle Bells, and it
Jingle Bells.
It sounded horrible, and Jack's like, "That's fantastic." It's like, no, it's not.
It reminded me of the beginning band playing "No Jingle Bells" when you got 6 graders together.
It sounded like it sounds like the bad harmonica version of Jurassic Park.
Oh God. Yeah, this movie's great.
This movie's great.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that I had to watch it again. So it was great.
So as always on the show, we always break everything down to 3 questions. Does it work for the film? Favorite scene, favorite score piece, or both? And what could have been done differently? So since you guys are guests of the show, does it work for the film? Does the score work with the movie itself?
So I'm gonna interrupt Dan before he goes. I'm gonna say that the movie works for the score because the score's so good that there wouldn't be a movie without it. Like there was this. It was just I could just listen to it, and I'm basically playing the movie. Like I don't need to see the movie again. If I just listen to it and it's just like, oh, it's all there. Like the emotions, everything's there. You could just like picture it in your head. It was so good. So yes, of course it works for it.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I mean, it totally works 100% for it. I think both the sound and the visuals are such good collaborators that they just complement each other so well. As soon as I heard the music, I immediately could see every scene of the film. And it just like was so spot on that it just, I don't know. I enjoyed it. And I think it definitely works.
Leslie?
I agree. I think it works. And I think that Danny Elfman was able to achieve what he wanted to achieve, which is that, timelessness. We've seen the movie, but if you go back and listen to the score, you can visualize those scenes in the movie just by listening to the score and vice versa. You probably could even watch the movie now without having the score on it and still hear them singing. So I think that it works. It works wonderfully well, and I think that it also helps pace the movie along, and it captures the feeling of the characters as well. So I think it works.
Yeah, it absolutely works because just by us seeing, all of the songs were written before they even had a script finished and everything else. Tells you right there how much this score works. Even the parts without the singing and everything else, it's just everything. Everything flows. Everything once the songs start and the score keeps going, you don't really notice, when the songs stop and the score begins, because it all sounds, everything works, everything's cohesive. So yeah, everything works with the visuals, everything fits. Now, is there a favorite scene or favorite score piece from you guys? I mean, you can't just say the entire movie.
Really, I have to choose one.
The one thing that speaks to you the most when someone says "Nightmare Before Christmas," and what scene pops in your head, what score piece pops in your head?
Well, I would say "This Is Halloween" always comes in my head, but after watching it today, even I love the scene where he kind of realizes that like he wants to be the Pumpkin King, and like he did his little thing and it didn't, like, he almost realizes what he's good at. Mm-hmm. And what he's good at is being the Pumpkin King. I love that scene for some reason, like him in the Christmas movie, in the Christmas town graveyard,
right?
And like his realization, I forget what it's called. I don't know what I'm trying to look at what it is, but it's that scene after he gets shot down.
I think it's like Poor Jack.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It's Poor Jack.
Poor Jack.
Yeah.
For some reason, I like the realization that he came up with, and that he like kind of changed right away and was like, all right, I got to save Christmas and give it back to the guy it belongs to. So
it sounded kind of like Jack's Lament, but it came back in a different way. It was more, whereas Jack's Lament was more sad and depressing because he was upset. This one was more like, I know what I need to do, and I need to be the Pumpkin King. So yeah, that was great. I like that scene too. Dan?
I mean, I'm going to be just cliche, and I love What's This? Like, I love that. I love that song, and I love that scene. It's just, it comes after like such an amazing part too. I mean, yeah, the whole Jack's Lament, I love that whole thing, the walk through the forest and stuff. But, I feel like those three things like really meet up really well at What's This. And to me, like when I see that scene and I hear that music, it just gets, I don't know, it like gets me all energized, and I'm ready to I just want to hear it like immediately. And that scene is just amazing because I love the contrast between like him and the Christmas town, and it just like everything is like he's talking about like the kids are throwing snowballs instead of throwing heads. Like, it's all like really hilarious, but it's like taken very seriously. Like he's like really reflecting on like, wow, like this is happening instead of this. There's nothing under the bed that's scaring him. There's nothing this. And it really makes him really think about like, what is it that we do in Halloween Town? And it's just like, it's really an interesting scene. For me, that's, I think, my favorite song and scene.
Leslie?
So my favorite song is the Sally song. It's just really haunting the way she sings it. I think Catherine O'Hara did a lovely job, portraying Sally, and her song was able to capture her emotion, that she wants to break free, and that her and Jack are very similar, because she caught on early. So to me, that's my favorite. Now, my favorite scene, I've got lots of favorite scenes because I love this movie.
You can just say the whole movie if you want to.
The whole movie, no. But what really stuck out in my mind, I have two. And the first one is where instead of the kids capturing Santa Claus, they capture the Easter Bunny. And the Easter Bunny pops out of that bag and then gets scared and goes back in the bag.
Oh, and the guy with the hatchet, and he's like, Bunny.
Yeah.
You take him back. You take him back where you found him, And then my second,
I'm sorry. I loved how Jack starts apologizing.
Yeah,
I was just about to say that.
I'm so sorry, sir.
And he's like, "Don't forget to apologize when you bring him back."
But my second favorite is where he goes down to Oogie Boogie. So, you hear that Jack is this bad dude, but you see a soft side of him throughout the whole movie. And then when he goes to rescue his friends and he goes down there and then Oogie Boogie becomes scared of him, then you realize that Jack is really scary in Halloween Town, that he is the Skeleton King and or the Pumpkin King, and he's scary. And I liked that.
I like that too. I think my favorite score piece for the longest time was This Is Halloween, but I think I got to go with Dan with What's This? Because it encompasses so much from the Halloween Town, it's still, like he's talking about where Jack's just like, they're throwing snowballs instead of throwing heads. You have this wonderful music, and then he's talking about throwing heads. It throws the whole, thing off. But yeah, and I love when Jack's like, curling up next to the little elf boy, and he's like, in dreamland. Then he goes, what's this? And he goes back to the big surprise, wonderful music. But my favorite scene, I think I gotta say the whole fight sequence with Oogie Boogie. I mean, come on, with the cowboys with the guns and the casino moment, and they're running around on a giant roulette table. That was awesome. And the giant saw blade comes out. That was so cool. I mean, that's one of my favorite scenes.
I mean, there's so many scenes, like you're saying, like are so good, and just go back and think about that. This is stop motion,
right?
Like,
and it took 2 years to make.
Yeah, we're watching something that was done in stop motion, yet flows so well, and is like, if done in live action, you'd still be in awe. And there's just so much, like the fact that they do so good that you forget that you're watching an animated stop motion film, and your imagination just goes. Even as an adult, like my kid in me was just like, all right, I'm in this world,
right?
Like, I live in Halloween Town, and I'm a animated character who's walking in stop motion. So it's great.
Can you imagine the idea? This can't, like, you can think of Gumby being stopped.
Yes, I love Gumby. I used to watch Gumby all the time.
We all
weird Gumby was, and then this is like
Gumby.
a whole other world. It's like
right.
Gumby was like two characters walking and like
and sliding. I was Gumby for Halloween one time.
Turning into a big ball or whatever.
Yeah,
everyone's
all sorts of weird things.
In like a weird like Cubert universe that like kind of just was like a landscape or something. And this is like everything. I mean, it's like worlds upon worlds that they've created in stop motion that was just like quite unbelievable. Like, I just want to give a special shout out to Ken Page and the Oogie Boogie song, though, because like it's a song that comes out of absolutely nowhere, and I love it. And just because it comes out of nowhere, it's just so amazing, and that song was just so great.
Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this last question, but I still got to ask it. What could have been done differently, if anything at all? I love the silence.
It's always
there.
a tough one, because when you go and watch like director's cuts sometimes, or like like the additional cuts, you're like, oh, I see what they're. Not many director's cuts, in my opinion, are better. Like, you're just like, oh, it worked though. Like, this is a class. There couldn't be anything. There's a reason why it's classic. Like, if you added stuff, or to maybe put Stewart back into narration and have his voice over Patrick, maybe only, I would say, add that back in. Okay. But like, other than that, the story itself, to me, it was great. I don't know if it needed to be any longer or shorter. The one thing I did say is, like, I was thinking that there could be a different world, and especially with like Disney Plus now, is that they could make little shorts of us going into all the different towns. All the different, like the Thanksgiving town. You remember all the doors that you saw?
Right.
Like,
I love that scene. You see the doors. It's great.
Yeah. And like, you go in and like you see what goes on there. So it'd be cool to like have like a shoot off series of just that. Like, I don't need a whole movie of it. Just like little 15 minutes, like Jack goes and visits Turkey Town. See like what happens.
Try turkey
imagine like
time.
going down to the St. Patrick's Day door. It's like, don't go down there. What is it?
Yeah,
it's a 5-minute movie of someone like throwing up on someone. Like,
it's Jack getting drunk the entire time.
Yeah. It's like, it's just a parade that just keeps going. Like, you're like, what?
All right, so Dan, what could have been done differently?
Man. I think like the one thing that, and I think because like when I was talking about like the Oogie Boogie, like I guess I wanted more about that, like, because I was so curious about like, what type of role does he play? Like, what is he like? Because I get what he is, but at the same time, it's like he's made out to be like really evil, sort of.
And Jack doesn't like him.
Yeah, they don't like each other.
It's almost
There's
like
a backstory there.
The competitor of Jack. Like, I feel
Right.
like Jack's like the mob boss, and like the Oogie Boogie man was like stepping on his terrain because he was like, "Oh, it's the
Mob
three
balls.
kids from the Oogie Boogie," and he's like, "We thought you didn't like us," and he's like, "I like you, but don't mention this to Oogie Boogie." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Jack. But like, I think like it was weird because like he seems like such a large. It seems like there's something there, but they didn't really. I don't feel like there was like not real follow through with that. I feel like if you were gonna do that, just they didn't really need that character, though I love that character. They could have made the evil scientist like kidnap Santa Claus, because that's kind of like what it seemed like leading, like, oh, he's this guy who like kind of vivisects like different people to create these weird things. So I think maybe just kind of trying to figure out what role this guy, Oogie Boogie actually plays. I don't know. That's the thing. But I mean, I don't know. Still, it would be what? Then like 90-minute movie?
Maybe that's why they wanted him, the scientist at the end. The original movie put the scientist at the end to be the Oogie Boogie, because you're saying like it was like playing that he could have been that guy,
or have created him because he looks so together like Sally, right? Like so.
He was stitched up.
Yeah.
Though that guy can eat a lot of poison. I mean, she was just kept trying to poison him. That was crazy.
And he goes, "You just poisoned me for the last time." We're like, "How many times did she poison you?"
And he still trusts her. He still trusts her. He still trusts her to make the soup. Yeah, I thought that was.
He was just lonely. I think he needed a companion. Like at the end, didn't he just basically make himself as a female?
Well, this is where the idea for Ex Machina came from.
No, Dan, no, sir. All right, so Leslie, what could have been done differently, if anything?
I love the movie in its entirety. I really do. I would have liked to see a little bit of the backstory behind the scientist, but I'm a scientist. And to see what his deal was, You see him, fight with Sally the whole movie, and then you see him create himself practically for a companion, and then you see him create the skeleton reindeer,
which I love. That was great.
It's wonderful, but what about his character? I mean, yeah, we know that he was a mad scientist, but what about his character? You don't see anything about him other than that.
Well, he was
like Dr. Moreau. Like, it's just so weird.
Well, he was kind of an idiot.
But Jack even went to him too.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like he needed all his equipment and stuff.
Yeah. But he was still kind of an idiot, though, because, like I said, he trusted Sally to make the soup for him. You poisoned me for the last time. But yet, make my soup for me, moron.
He's like, oh, you could come out if you behave yourself. And
right.
Not even there.
Escape him, like,
it's not even there.
No.
All right. I'm just gonna say this. Yeah, I don't really think much could have been done differently. Like you guys were talking about, maybe have a little bit more about Oogie Boogie, or maybe a little bit more about, the evil scientist or whatever. But I mean, truthfully, everything just worked. Everything, when you even now going back and watching it again, just to sit down and watch it, still fell in love with the movie all over again. Because it's been a couple of years since we've seen it, and just sitting down and just watching it, it was just like I was like a little kid just watching it, going like big dumb smile on my face, humming along to the songs, bobbing my head around like I'm that little kid watching the movie in the theaters with my brother. So I truthfully, I don't think there's much you could do differently for this film. So does it measure up? Yeah.
So it passes the nostalgia test.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was waiting for that. I was like, it blew the nostalgia test away.
Oh yeah.
Like I was almost scared to be like, all right, I'm gonna look at it in two different ways, obviously with the score, and then like, oh yeah, what about if we were gonna do a nostalgia test on this? And I was like, of course we're gonna pass it. There's no way. Like, and there's always some tests that we do that we're like, please don't do it. No, don't ruin my childhood. And I was like, this can't be ruined. And now that I think about it, it definitely is a Christmas movie because it ends with snow.
Yeah.
Even in Halloween, like Santa Claus passes by and gives them a gift. And I loved how the other characters were saying, "What's this?"
Right.
Like when that comes down too. So that was great.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great ending to the film. And now Disney originally they had wanted a sequel to the film, and Tim Burton was like, no, it doesn't need it. And even
it wasn't
now,
gonna be stop motion though.
Yeah,
it was gonna be more.
Yeah,
animated.
Disney didn't want it to be stop motion. They wanted it to be like computer generated animation. And Tim Burton said, even if it was stop motion, it doesn't need to happen. And truthfully, it doesn't. It told what it needed to tell. Like, maybe like what you were talking, Manny, with the 15-minute shorts peeking into the world of the other towns. Maybe have that as an interactive thing. What would the other towns look like with this Tim Burton style? But it does not need to be a movie. It does not need a sequel. It doesn't need to have.
No. They really stopped it, I think, by not putting the part that they narrated in the score in the actual movie with him, like with having any kids. If you have that in the movie, you've left the door open for like 5 sequels.
Right. Jack's kids are coming back, and now they're going to Thanksgiving Town, or they're going to the St. Patrick's Town.
Yeah. You got to give it to Tim Burton for saying no to that, because like a lot of people would do a money grab and be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, why do I care if it's going to be that great or not? Because how many sequels are that great? I mean, you can name a few. That's for another podcast, but like I'm glad he said no, because I think we'd all be a little bit like, oh no, like the story's great, I love it, it's done. Put it to bed. I love it.
All right, so that's our thoughts on The Nightmare Before Christmas. Guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing this, this movie with us. I mean, I couldn't have, I think we couldn't have picked a better movie to do this.
I agree.
No, thank you.
Oh, it was great. Thank you.
Appreciate having you guys on, having us on, and definitely when you guys came on. And we got to come up with another one next year.
Oh, definitely.
For you guys to come up on.
Definitely.
We got to look up some scores.
we
haven't done a movie in a while because Rocky did kill us. So it was.
He knocked you out, huh?
Yeah.
I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Oh, it didn't work. Oh wait, here it is.
Yes. That was awesome.
I'll have to edit that a little bit. I might leave it in there. So.
Oh, it'd be good. It'd be good.
All right, so real quick, guys, tell everybody where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, so you can find the Nostalgia Test podcast on at our website on Podbean at thenostalgiatest.com, or on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And we also put up some clips, some video clips of our episodes, slowly, but they're getting there on YouTube. We'll share the link, our YouTube link with you guys, so you can put it, share with everyone. Yeah, and also we just started doing this thing where if you have someone who loves nostalgic movies or anything, and they just are big fans of stuff, and you want to have us put one of their things to the Nostalgia Test, it's a perfect gift for someone at any occasion. You could hire us to pre-record an episode for them, or do a virtual live virtual episode for them, so we could put that stuff to the test. And you can check that out on our website, thenostalgiatest.com, and you click on hire us, and then go right there, and all the details are there.
Nice. And I do recommend one of their episodes on Supermarket Sweep. I thought that was great. I love that episode. I still like that episode.
We need to get on Supermarket Sweep. Manny and I have been talking about it. Getting on that.
Great.
That would be
great.
The
new version of Hidden Temple, which is now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the adult version of Legends of the Hidden Temple. That'd be great.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. So, and of course, you can find us on Podbean as well, Spotify, Apple, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can even find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leslie does the Facebook. I do the Twitter. We even have an email, measuringthescore@gmail.com. Send us an email, talk to us, and, we'll hook you up with great guests like the, Dan and Manny from the Nostalgia Test. And, yeah. So, Leslie, you got anything for closing?
No.
Just short, sweet, and to the point. No.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone. And as always, for Measuring the Score, I'm Chris.
And I'm Leslie.
Have a good one.